Old Mage Guy is still live. Streaming politics. Morning news with OMG.
I'm up. I'm here. My cat's driving me up the wall.
Good morning, Vietnam!
And I've got a headache. That headache will take care of a little bit, though. Caffeine, nicotine in me. And if that doesn't work, THC. Horn meow. You damn horny toad. Waking me up at 9 o'clock. My body's still set for the other time. Still set for an hour in the past. So we've got a little bit today. So this is where we start.
Support my work and independent journalism at patreon.com/5minutenews. Our guest today is a political analyst and author of several books, including American Rule, How a Nation Conquered the World but Failed Its People, and Midnight Kingdom, A History of Power, Paranoia, and the Coming Crisis. Jared Yates Sexton, welcome back to The Weekend Show.
Anthony, my friend, I always appreciate these talks. I just wish that we had better things to talk about. I wish that you and I could have a little bit of a jaunt, a little bit of a jolly.
Right, and I always caveat, because I tend to giggle a bit, and it's a nervous laugh. I don't find any of this stuff humorous. I kind of don't really know what to do when we're talking about kind of existential threats in this way. Your book, which you have behind you, describes the coming crisis. Would you say that your predictions, both in that book and in your other writings, have come to fruition? Are we experiencing what you warned us of?
Unfortunately. This was one of those situations where, I started
What, he warned you of? Why, because he was able to get it fucking put into a book? Nah, come on, man. That you warned us of? No! There are many people that have been warning about this motherfucker. Many people who have had predictions about his bitch ass for fucking... Oh. No, I'm sorry. If you're writing a book about it, you're not trying to get the message out. You're trying to make money. Plain and fucking simple. put a message behind a paywall, might as well not be fucking giving that message. For fucking real. I might actually have to skip this one if it's all about this fuck face. Who's being credited for warning everybody about Donald Trump. No. I don't even deserve credit for that. Because multiple people fucking did that shit. Not right now, Horny Dog. You just get off of things, young lady.
Searching both American Rule and the Midnight Kingdom years ago, and something became very obvious once I started following the facts where they were, and I started looking throughout history, and it became apparently clear that it was not going to resolve itself. That there was going to have to be some sort of a major response towards MAGA, towards the international authoritarian right-wing movement that we're dealing with, the oligarchical coup that we're now dealing with. And it became obvious that if there was not that aggressive response, if we did not fix the material conditions that led us to this moment, that we would eventually find ourselves where we are now. And it's a sobering feeling to have...
You mean what I've been saying for, well, more than 20, almost 30 years now? What I've been speaking out about for damn near 30 years now? Go fuck yourself, buddy.
Seen it coming for a while. And you know what's funny
Yeah,
about it?
fucking
I would
3
have all these
decades.
interviews, and in the midst of an interview, the interviewer would always say, well, this is really depressing. And I would say, I'm sorry, I don't want to talk about these things. I would much rather avoid what has happened. But it's been a surreal experience watching the crisis that I saw formulating and more or less coming over the horizon. And now we're smack dab in the middle of it. And I want to make sure, because I think it's important to differentiate on this, that doesn't mean that we've lost all hope. That doesn't mean that there isn't a possibility for a better future. some sort of an alternative. And at the same time, I also have to tender that with a sober reminder, which is crises have a tendency to get worse. And what we're dealing with right now is almost sort of the precursor. It's almost the foreshock of what could potentially come down the path if we still don't.
This guy. Wait, Dublin.
Deal with these conditions and still don't deal with the problem that we're facing right now. But yes, we are currently smack dab in the middle of the crisis that I was fearing.
So, with this crisis in mind, Jack,
You. I'm sorry, dude. No. You don't get to sit there and write a book in the last fucking 4 years and then claim that you were the one that warned everybody. When there have been people out here for almost 30 years warning about fucking Donald Trump. You don't get to claim credit for that. I'm sorry. Fucking no. Just because you had access to fucking put it in text. While others of us were out here shouting it from the fucking rooftop. Bite my metal ass.
do you feel, as I do, that there seems to be a collective denial from the media and from commentators that America has fallen into an authoritarian regime?
Yes, there is denial.
That, this loss of democracy has already happened, that the constitutional crisis is already upon us. Because we talked for years, especially during Trump's first term, of this possibly happening. But I do still struggle to...
Oh, dish soap is on sale. We need it.
Oh, and let's talk about Trump's first term. How all y'all who supported him looked at those of us and warned you about his bitch ass and said we were crazy. So guess what? Guess who was really smoking the fucking meth? You motherfuckers.
Yeah, I think we need cut into it.
What's in there?
Possibly happening. But I do still struggle to even hear people admitting that that's where we're at.
Absolutely. And I think the longer that this has gone on, I first started getting involved in researching this and warning about this back in 2015, 2016. And, back then, Anthony, I always...
Excuse me? There have been those of us calling out about this since the fucking 90s. And you want to claim to be the one to be warning everybody? Fuck you, buddy. Fuck you and the horse you rode in on. You pompous, egotistical, money-greeding piece of shit. Sorry, not listening to that. I'm not going to sit here and listen to a bunch of bullshit. Stuff that I know 100% is bullshit.
Trump is now in his first month in office, and we want to know how you think he's doing as president. You guys know how I think.
Defendant Christopher Joseph Quaglin was among the most violent of the January 6 rioters. He viciously assaulted numerous officers, and this court convicted him of 6 counts of assault, 2 counts of robbery, obstruction of the congressional certification vote, and other offenses. On at least a dozen occasions, he stood face to face with officers as he screamed at, pushed with outstretched arms, punched, swatted, and slapped officers, pushed bike racks into officers, and even choked one officer to the ground. He used his body as a battering ram and employed a stolen police riot shield against the officers in an attempt to force his way into the building. He sprayed several officers directly in the face with chemical irritant. He joined the collective mob pushes against the police line. In total, he was on Capitol grounds wreaking havoc for more than 3 hours. Due to his egregious criminal conduct on January 6th, his refusal to accept responsibility, and the need to deter him and others from further wrongdoing, the government recommends that the court sentence him to 168 months of incarceration. That sentencing memo was written by a Justice Department prosecutor whose name is Ashley Akers. And the Trump-appointed judge who heard that case
168 months. So... yeah, that's... It's not a very long sentence.
and considered that memo, agreed, and sentenced the defendant to a dozen years in prison, just shy of what the prosecutors had asked for. Now, less than a year after that, he's out. And one of the last things Ashley Akers did as a prosecutor for the U.S. Department of Justice was submit filings to dismiss charges against defendants in cases she spent years building. Dismiss the charges because these people have been now pardoned by Donald Trump. I say that's one of the last things she did for the U.S. Justice Department because after more than 7 years as a federal prosecutor and involvement in many January 6 cases, Ashley Akers left the U.S. Justice Department.
Hi, my name is Suri Crow, and you're watching the Midas Touch Network. This is a report that I've been wanting to do actually for a while, and I was just reminded why Ashley Akers' story is so important by yet another frightening development at Trump's Department of Justice. More on that in a minute, but first more on Ms. Akers via Rachel Maddow.
Did you want to leave?
No, I suppose yes, because I left, but circumstances came in a way that I didn't expect.
Yeah. What is it like to have worked on so many of these January 6 cases? I understand that you may have had as many, if not more, January 6 trials as any prosecutor in the department. What is it like to have all of that work and all of those cases and all of those convictions and all of those sentences wiped away by the president?
It was appalling, really. I think that the pardons that happened were disturbing. They were disturbing for a number of reasons. They were disturbing because it condones the violence that you just described and that the prosecutors on the team have been describing for years in court. It condones that. And this wasn't ordinary violence. As you described earlier, the police officers who were testifying in trials for years talked about this being the scariest day of their lives. They didn't know if they were going to come home. They talked about this being a medieval battle scene. And not only does it condone violence against those law enforcement officers, but it undermines the rule of law. And as judges in our court have continually repeated that the cornerstone of our democracy is the peaceful transition of power from one administration to the next. And the crimes that were pardoned from January 6th were crimes that disrupted that peaceful transition of power.
So Miss Akers, a bright and shining star at the DOJ, after 7 years as a federal prosecutor, painstakingly putting several of these January 6 cases together, getting convictions, had to resign from a job and a mission she loved because of the abject corruption of the Department of Justice under Trump. And the story that reminded me to go back and revisit Miss Akers' tragic resignation, and there have been several more prosecutors who have resigned from DOJ under duress, was this story where a DOJ pardon attorney says she was fired when she refused to add actor and convicted felon Mel Gibson to a list that would have restored his gun rights. That attorney, Liz Hoyer, explains to Chris Hayes at MSNBC.
Was Mel Gibson one of those people that you had identified?
He was not. Mel Gibson has never applied for any type of relief through my office, but we were able to identify 95 ordinary Americans who had applied for pardons, who had been waiting years to be considered for that relief, and who have been extensively vetted. All of these folks had in common a number of things, including that their underlying crimes of conviction were nonviolent offenses. They were minor offenses. They were offenses that happened many, many years ago, in all cases 20 plus years ago. And these are all individuals who had demonstrated by interviews with neighbors and employers and family members and others who know them that they have been outstanding citizens since the time of their conviction. Mel Gibson was not among those individuals who we identified.
Well, how does Mel Gibson enter the workflow?
I got cheap from CD Keys.
I got it cheap.
Was not among those individuals who we identified.
Well, how does Mel Gibson enter the workflow?
So what happened was I was asked to put together a memo for the Attorney General summarizing the cases of 9 of the 95 individuals that my colleagues and I had identified. They had whittled that 95 down to 9, and they asked me to write a memo to the Attorney General recommending that these would be suitable candidates for her to grant this relief of restoring their firearm rights. And I was comfortable doing that with those cases because I had a great deal of information about those 9 people. So Mel Gibson did not enter the equation until after I sent the initial draft of my memo to some officials within the Office of the Deputy Attorney General. They received my memo and they sent it back to me with the direction, please add Mel Gibson to this recommendation.
So here's the thing. Mel Gibson had a previous conviction for domestic violence going back to 2011, and according to his own attorney, had attempted to purchase a firearm in 2023, but was denied based on his criminal background, which is the way it should be. If you're a convicted felon, you should no longer be able to purchase firearms. But it would appear that Mr. Gibson, who is a good friend of Donald Trump's and hangs out with Kash Patel, thought he should just be able to skip over the laws. And when Ms. Hoyer followed those laws, she apparently lost her job.
Todd Blanche, who is the number 2, I guess, now at Department of Justice, has this to say about your account here, saying that former employees who violate their ethical duties by making false accusations on press tours will not be tolerated. I don't know what that means. This former employee's version of events is false. Her decisions to voice this erroneous accusation about her dismissal is in direct violation of her ethical duties as an attorney, is a shameful distraction from our critical mission to prosecute violent crime, enforce our nation's immigration laws, and make America safe again. What do you say to that?
Well, Chris, the reason I'm here talking about this tonight is because what's going on inside the Department of Justice in terms of silencing dissent is so frightening that I felt like I needed to share this story after I was fired. And frankly, I think Mr. Blanche's statement really just proves my point. My ethical duty as a Department of Justice employee, and now a former one, is to the laws of the United States and the people that I was entrusted to serve. It is not to the bullies who are currently running the Department of Justice. We take an oath of office as Department of Justice employees, and that oath says nothing about loyalty to the political administration or to the political leadership of the department. And frankly, I think that the position that Mr. Blanche is taking in his statement really just proves how terrified we should be about the current situation at the Department of Justice.
Trump and his Project 2025 acolytes are hollowing out any semblance of law and order in the United States. They are gutting our institutions so that the authoritarian takeover can be completed. Here's another really sad example of that when last week the head of the New York City FBI field office was also forced to resign.
Head of the New York field office, James Dennehy, left his office for the last time on Thursday. We showed you some of this late yesterday, to the sound of bagpipes and cheers. He says he was forced to retire after he pushed back against the Trump administration's demand that the FBI hand over the names of agents who worked on January 6 cases. Here's what he had to say to his former colleagues.
There's a motto in the Marine Corps called Semper Fidelis. Semper Fidelis means always faithful.
Yep.
I will always be faithful to this country, to this organization, and most of all, I will always be faithful to you.
No.
And I appreciate you being faithful to
No.
me, to this office, and more importantly, our mission. So thank you, and I will be your best cheerleader on the outside. I appreciate it.
There's a woman in that video, probably several people, but one who is wiping away the tears from her eyes, and you can just see the profound love and devotion that Mr. Dennehy's fellow agents and employees have for this man. It just really gets me. And from everything I've read about Agent Dennehy, he is a solid stand-up guy. You wouldn't know where his political leanings lie because he is a professional by all accounts. A man who defended his fellow FBI agents from being targeted by an unhinged president who was hell-bent on revenge for those agents who were simply assigned to work on Trump's cases. Agent Dennehy is a hero, in my opinion, and certainly to those agents he protected by holding the line. As I was writing this story earlier today, I just had a really bad feeling in the pit of my stomach for all of the dedicated DOJ prosecutors who love justice more than they love the big money of the big law firms, and agents like Mr. Dennehy and so many others whom you want defending your nation against the most evil people. And now we have Crypto Cash and completely unhinged Dan Bongino running, or should I say destroying the FBI from the inside out. These are dark days in America. I mean, it is what it is. But I personally want to thank these public servants for their commitment to the rule of law and their professionalism and for what they have given to us as public servants. And I will just go ahead and quote former agent
For real. I know what has been thought of about the FBI by the people. Yeah, and you know, I get it. Most of you that are having to run into the FBI, it's because you're doing something you're not supposed to. I mean, we're really doing something you're not supposed to. So, they say the FBI comes after people who do pirating. Maybe if you're a pirating server owner, but otherwise, no. The FBI's got a lot bigger fish to fry than your pirated game or movie. Especially considering the whole loophole of if you have a solid copy or own rights to a single copy of it, you have the rights to make another copy for your own personal use, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it's the reason why you don't get caught for that shit is because there's a loophole there. There's gray area. They actually have to have proof of you doing so and not having proper permissions and licensing to be able to make your backup copy. That's the game industries are trying to avoid and get around by putting everything as a service, game as a service, instead of just a game. Okay, go on, Honey Toad.
And when he said it's time for me to dig in, when he was protecting those agents that were under fire by Trump and his acolytes. And I would say the same for us. It's time for us to dig in. Dig in. I know that so many of us feel hopeless and paralyzed by the non-stop shit show that is going on. I read through comments on social media, and I see so many people saying that they feel scared and afraid and paralyzed, and that is what they want. That is what authoritarian regimes want. But I am asking you, and I understand because I have been down in that dark abyss myself, I am asking you to dig in and to lock arms with me and everyone else who is fighting for our freedoms and for our democracy, which is clearly on the
You were thinking stupid.
of disappearing, which is why we need to fight for it. Fight for it. It matters. It matters. It matters when we stand up and fight. You know, at their core, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Mike Johnson, they are just freaking cowards. They are afraid of us. So when we stand up and show our power and our solidarity, it matters. Look at Ukraine, holding off the big bad Vlad. They've been doing that for years now. We can hold these guys off too, and I firmly believe that we can win, but we have to stick together, okay? And as I've been saying recently, remember, the righteous anger is a good thing. We have the right to be pissed off. And I am certainly pissed off. And I am using my anger to channel into this channel and other work that I am doing. And I hope that you would join me in that too. So thank you so much for watching. You can follow me on Instagram, where I hang out a lot and share a lot of content, on Blue Sky and TikTok, where I'm coming back to life. Okay? Appreciate you guys being here, and I hope to see you back here very soon.
Never pay for your internet again. Discover the Ultralink free Wi-Fi router, built with the same technology used in space stations. Ultralink captures your internet directly from satellites, allowing you to connect at home.
Rest easy, my fellow Americans. The United States is not at war. It's not been invaded. And the American Civil Liberties Union caught Donald Trump flat-footed, filed a lawsuit in the federal courts in D.C., obtained a temporary restraining order against Donald Trump declaring a phony war, and trying to use the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 in non-war time to turbocharge his deportation plans. We got developments in the case with Judge Boasberg now over the weekend, following a hearing late on Saturday, expanding the temporary restraining order and doing it in a very crafty way to avoid any argument that there is he doesn't have the power to issue a nationwide injunction. You've heard this over and over again in the last day or so. Nationwide injunctions are beyond the power of federal judges, says MAGA. Well, Judge Boasberg's got one for them. And the ACLU was smart to ask for a class certification. A class certification of all of those impacted by Donald Trump's phony proclamation of war are now restricted and blocked from being deported for the next 14 days while Judge Boasberg gets his mind around the briefing about whether it should be extended indefinitely. Donald Trump's already run to an appellate court, but these matters are going to stay with Judge Boasberg, at least for this week. I break it down for you right here on the Midas Touch Network and Legal AF. You've heard the news. We are at war. We've been invaded. There's an imminent act of invasion. It's the Venezuelan drug cartel gangs, and they're being led by the Maduro regime in Venezuela. What do we do about it? Listen, the drug gang narcotics, narco-terrorism issue, I get it. It's a real issue. It doesn't constitute an imminent invasion or a war against America by a foreign power. I mean, the gang, for instance, that's now a narco-terrorist organization, which has been here for over
over 10 years, for instance, I don't think any aspect of them constitutes a warring body, even though they're calling it in the proclamation by Donald Trump, I'll read to you in a minute, some sort of irregular war participant. Tren de Aragua, or TDA, it's been here for quite some time, as have other narco-terrorism gangs coming out of El Salvador. But that's not what that war power is for. The Alien Enemies Act, as Judge Boasberg has recognized, was put on the books in 1798 along with a bunch of other alien acts, the Alien Sedition Act, the Alien Enemies Act. It's the only one left. It was given as a power to President Adams, of all people, to use in wartime, or in the threat or the imminent threat or incursion associated with war. That's why it's only been used during World War I, World War II, and the War of 1812. In World War II, it was used in an unconstitutional way to put into concentration camps Italians, Germans, and mainly Japanese Americans. And then it was overturned, the use of that power by FDR was overturned by the United States Supreme Court years later. Donald Trump has been warning America that he was planning to declare a phony war since the campaign. How imminent can it be? Since Project 2025 has been talking about it for 3 years. The Heritage Foundation has been talking about it longer than that. Donald Trump campaigned on it 2 years ago. How imminent of an incursion or a war could it be? Is that the very definition of it's not an imminent threat? Is that they've been talking about it all this time? It even took them 60 days within the administration to sign the proclamation. Boasberg's not having any of it, but what I love about what happened on the hearing on Saturday afternoon and through Sunday is that, and then ACLU, I want to really compliment them. They have a project devoted to immigrant rights, and their Immigrant Rights Project co-director argued the case. They filed this lawsuit. Just how crafty the ACLU is. They filed their lawsuit before Donald Trump had actually published the proclamation declaring war against Venezuela and TDA. And by extension, our civil liberties. He had signed it apparently on Friday, Trump, but he didn't publish it until Saturday. I'll put it up on the screen in a minute. And they were ready. They had already moved on Friday for the lawsuit. By Friday/Saturday morning, they had their TRO in place. And the TRO was in one form, and it's now been expanded considerably since the hearing last night. And I'll tell you about that now. It started as a case involving 6 or so Venezuelans who would be subject to this proclamation if it ever got published. And they got the TRO applied to these 6 or 8, with the judge declaring yesterday, early yesterday, these 6 or 9 are not going to get deported until 2 more weeks. Then he held a hearing by Zoom at 5 o'clock on Saturday. And the lawyers for the ACLU and the Trump administration came in, and then the judge did something extraordinary. He expanded considerably the scope of his temporary restraining order. And he did it in a way that was very novel and hits MAGA right where they live. They keep complaining that federal judges are exceeding their Article 3 power from the Constitution, and they're by issuing nationwide injunctions. No one single federal judge should ever do a nationwide injunction. It should only be, what they say next is, it should only be in the form of a class action lawsuit. Okay, well, the ACLU asked for a class action of all people negatively impacted and subject to the proclamation by Donald Trump to evict all Venezuelans and other people who are undocumented from this country. So that is the class.
Don't know if you need Robitussin for your cough, Advil for your aches, or Theraflu for, well, all the things.
All Venezuelans and other people who are undocumented from this country. So that is the class. So the judge didn't enter a nationwide injunction. So lower your temperature, MAGA. He entered an injunction pursuant to a class that he's preliminarily certified. See, that's different. And so the judge said, I'm going to set a briefing schedule as well.
MAGA's going to hate that.
And I like the briefing schedule and the speed at which he's going to have the briefing and the hearing, because it undercuts the ability for the Department of Justice for Trump to run into appellate court, either the D.C. Court of Appeals or the United States Supreme Court, and ask for emergency relief, because we've seen this movie already recently. Even the Supreme Court was like, you know what, we don't like incomplete records. Develop the record with the trial judge below. It's a week from now. I think this is how it's going to go here too. Come back to us after you go through the proper procedures and proper logistics. So Boasberg, anticipating this, said, we're going to move everybody very, very quickly through this briefing schedule. And so on Monday, the judge has ordered, let me get the schedule here. Monday, the Trump administration needs to file its opposition to the temporary restraining order now entered, certifying the class preliminarily and entering the injunction to stop the use of the Alien Enemies Act to deport people. 2 days later, there's the final brief by the ACLU and a hearing on Friday. And that's how quick this is all going to go. And by Friday, the judge is going to either keep the temporary restraining order in place or vacate the temporary restraining order or change the terms of it or something. If Donald Trump, who's already filed the notice of appeal with the D.C. Court of Appeals, asks Boasberg for a stay while he prosecutes his appeal, Boasberg's going to likely say no. Brief your issues with me at the trial level. We'll see you on Friday for the hearing. If he goes to the D.C. Appellate court, where he's already filed a notice of appeal on this issue, and Trump asks for a stay of the proceedings to allow for the appeal to block the temporary restraining order, I am sure the D.C. Court of Appeals is going to say, what's the rush? What's the irreparable harm? You've been in office for more than 60 days. This is the first time you got around to doing it. I mean, 5 more days, you have them all in custody. It's not like you got to go get them. You got all of them in Guantanamo Bay, the Venezuelans and others, and you have them in starting to be in detention camps and processing camps and in jails. So we can wait 5 more days. I am sure that's what the D.C. Appellate Court's going to say. If he tries to then leap over to get to the Supremes, I don't think he's going to find 4 votes or even 5 votes to find this interesting before Chief Judge Boasberg at the trial court level completes the briefing schedule. And then once that's done next Friday, then Donald Trump can go ask for the TRO to be blocked after the judge is done developing the record and the evidence, or the Supreme Court through Chief Justice Roberts can go do something about it. But I think for now, the law of the land is going to be Boasberg's temporary restraining order, expanded following yesterday's hearing on Saturday, to now certify a class and enjoin the use of the Alien Enemies Act, or this proclamation from Saturday by Donald Trump to try to deport people in a turbocharged manner. Everybody just status quo. Venezuelans, you stay where you are in custody of the American immigration officials and in whatever detention center or Guantanamo that you're in. Lawyers, work on your briefing. We'll see you all on Friday. Appellate Court's going to be like, Boasberg, you got this. Supreme Court's going to be, Boasberg, and my lower court, you got this. We'll see everybody next weekend. And until then, those people sit where they are, and that's been challenged. Now, there's all this jumping up and down by MAGA. Oh, a federal judge is interfering with the commander-in-chief, finding that there's war. Let's talk about that for a minute. In order to declare war, president can't do it. He's the commander-in-chief after a war has been declared by Congress.
Yes.
Last I looked, Congress hasn't declared war or found that we're at war. Now we're going to have a whole congressional debate, phony debate about war. TDA has been in this country for 10 plus.
I'm sorry if you were under a different assumption of the way war is supposed to actually be declared. But, no, it's... yeah. It's not something the president can just go, we're going to war. No. Congress has to say we're going to war. And then the president can make the announcement. That's all the president can do in that point, is make an announcement. Young lady, your horny toadness needs to not be so pushy. I love you too.
Seriously. MS-13, another gang out of El Salvador, been here for 15 years or 20 years. We've had gangs, drug gangs in America, unfortunately, for a long, long time, under many, many administrations. It just doesn't constitute an incursion or an invasion or a war being perpetrated by the Maduro regime in Venezuela. It may be other things, but it's not that. There's a reason that it's seen as a presidential war power, not to be used in peacetime, right? World War I, 1812, World War II. Get it? That's where you use this kind of stuff.
Good boy.
And I also think it cuts against the administration because they've been talking about using the Alien Enemies Act from 1798 like for the last 4 years. How imminent is it? It's not. Donald Trump didn't even do it on his day one. It wasn't part of the 30 or 40 executive orders that he launched at all. So that's what's going to happen over the next week. We'll continue to follow it. You're here on the Midas Touch Network. You're on Legal AF. This is my analysis for you. Michael Popak. Follow me on all things Legal AF. Come over to the Legal AF YouTube channel where we do it.
Well, that is definitely some good news. And we've needed some.
I didn't believe until I
Even
tried
if it's
myself.
not
If you
major
download
good
the
news.
AliExpress app through this video, you can pick any 3 edits that you want for a total of.
Over the weekend, Donald Trump declared that there was essentially a war taking place between Venezuela and the United States via Venezuelan gangs, such that Donald Trump invoked special war powers under the Alien Enemies Act, where Donald Trump said anybody who he declares to be a gang member in Venezuela will not receive due process, and he will send them wherever he wants to send them. This was challenged in the federal courts. A federal judge, Judge Boasberg in Washington, D.C., issued an emergency order over the weekend stopping Donald Trump from just unilaterally deporting people or doing whatever he wants with people without due process, and it appears that Donald Trump has ignored and violated that court order. I'll give you these statements from the Trump regime, and I'll let you decide for yourself. But Donald Trump took a group of Venezuelans who Donald Trump claims are gang members, and he sent them to El Salvador to go to concentration camps in El Salvador. Here's the headline from the New York Post when the federal judge made this order, and then the president of El Salvador, who rules El Salvador like a dictator, he posts all of these propaganda videos, and he's very close with the Trump regime. He goes, oopsies, too late. So the New York Post headline right after the federal judge ruled was, federal judge orders deportation flights carrying alleged Venezuelan gangbangers to return to U.S., blocks Trump from invoking the Alien Enemies Act. Then President Nayib Bukele of El Salvador goes, oopsie, too late. You can see the photograph of here of these migrants who Donald Trump claims, one to be migrants and two to be gang members. As this account, Beck Hamilton, explains, it is important to be very clear. The people you see in this photo have not had any due process whatsoever between being uprooted from their lives and families in the U.S. and finding themselves now in these concentration prisons in El Salvador. As Aaron Reichlin-Melnick says, people on the flight sent to El Salvador had zero opportunity to contest the government's evidence, claiming that they are gang members or claiming that they are foreign combatants. Many of these individuals said they were falsely accused of belonging to Tren de Aragua gang. One person had a hearing set for today on Monday. There was no due process at all. Let me be very clear. Gang members in the United States should have the book thrown at them. I am a law and order person. I do not want gang members roaming the streets. Let's be clear, the Department of Justice has authority to go after gangbangers, gang members. You don't need to declare that there's a phony war taking place to declare war powers under the Alien Enemies Act, which has only been utilized in the War of 1812, World War I, and World War II, and has a very dark history of imposing concentration camp-like conditions on people, like we saw with the Japanese internment camps in World War II. Now, here's what Secretary Marco Rubio said to President Bukele of El Salvador after it appeared that after the federal court order blocking these deportations from happening, the Trump regime went about it anyway. Marco Rubio goes, "Thank you for your assistance and friendship, President Bukele. Let me share with you the statement from Caroline Leavitt, the chief propagandist from the Trump regime. Here she responds to allegations that the Trump regime violated the federal order by not turning the deportation flights around. Here's what she says, quote, "The administration did not refuse to comply with a court order. The order, which had no lawful basis, was issued after terrorist TDA aliens had already been removed from U.S. territory. The written order and the administration's actions do not conflict. Moreover, as the Supreme Court has repeatedly made clear, federal courts generally have no jurisdiction over the president's conduct of foreign affairs, his authorities under the Alien Enemies Act, and his core Article 2 powers to remove foreign alien terrorists from the U.S. soil and repel a declared invasion. A single judge in a single city cannot direct the movement of an aircraft carrier full of foreign alien terrorists who were physically expelled from U.S. soil," as Aaron Melnick explains. Setting aside the false claim here that the order had no lawful basis by the federal judge blocking these deportations under Trump's declaration that a war is taking place, and the lie that the Supreme Court has ever said the president can remove anyone without due process, it's kind of hilarious that Caroline Leavitt thinks an aircraft carrier is the same thing as an airplane. I want to share this with you as well because facts matter. Someone responded to Aaron Melnick and said, due process does not apply to foreign combatants, as these individuals are foreign combatants in this war that Donald Trump is saying exists right now. Aaron goes, "Said so confidently and yet so incorrectly. Remember, even accused Al-Qaeda terrorists held at Guantanamo Bay have due process and must be tried under the laws of the United States." Right here is the case, Hamdan versus Rumsfeld. Take a look at it right here. It was a 5-3 decision for Salim Ahmed Hamdan. The Supreme Court, in a 5-3 decision authored by Justice John Paul Stevens, held that neither an act of Congress nor the inherent powers of the executive laid out in the Constitution expressly authorize the sort of military commission at issue in this case. Absent that express authorization, the commission had to comply with the ordinary laws of the United States and the laws of war. The Geneva Convention, as part of the ordinary laws of war, could therefore be enforced by the Supreme Court, along with the statutory Uniform Code of Military Justice. Hamdan's exclusion from certain parts of his trial, deemed classified by the Military Commission, violated both of these, and the trial was therefore illegal. Justices Scalia, Thomas, and Alito dissented. Chief Justice John Roberts, who participated in the case while serving on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, did not take part in the decision. In the Hamdan case, there was even a military commission, and that process was deemed to be unconstitutional. Here, Donald Trump is just declaring by fiat that these individuals belong to a gang, and then he's sending them to El Salvador and putting them in concentration camps without their ability to say, I'm not part of the gang, or I haven't committed these crimes, or I have committed these crimes. Again, I want to be very clear. If they committed crimes, justice needs to be served and served swiftly. But there is a process in these United States of America where people who are accused of crimes go through a process that we call due process, and if they are found guilty, throw the frickin' book at them But we are a nation of laws, not Donald Trump saying, I'm putting people in concentration camps in El Salvador and then making propaganda videos where people's heads are being shaved and they're literally being thrown in concentration camps like you would see in authoritarian regimes. Here's what the Trump regime is claiming, that there were 261 illegal aliens deported to El Salvador, Venezuelans going to El Salvador. They claim 137 of these were via the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. 101 were Venezuelans removed via Title A. 21 were Salvadoran MS-13 gang members. 2 were special cases for El Salvador. Bukele posted that the U.S. returned 2 MS-13 ringleaders to El Salvador. Some of the rap sheets for those removed include the following. This is the claim of what they are, but again, we have a nation of laws. These things need to be tested. What happens if they just claim, as Donald Trump does? Look at the other executive order that he made. So, invocation of the Alien Enemies Act. What was the other executive order? Addressing the risks from Paul Weiss, March 14, 2025. So Donald Trump's doing executive orders threatening and attacking law firms he doesn't like because they've hired special counsel Jack Smith before, or they've hired lawyers Donald Trump doesn't work. So what's stopping Donald Trump from claiming anybody is a gang member or that he doesn't like and sending people off to El Salvador? I want to show you the regime propaganda video. It's horrifying of what it looks like with the people going to El Salvador. And again, I have no compassion. I have no desire to be, say nice things about bad people. I just believe in due process, as did the Supreme Court in that 5-3 Hamdan decision that I read you. I want to talk about El Salvador quickly, then I want to show you this video. I want to give you all of the data. So El Salvador's entire GDP of El Salvador, who Marco Rubio's like, El Salvador so strong, their entire GDP for the year, about $34 billion, as compared to the United States GDP of $30.34 trillion. El Salvador's poverty rate stands at 27.2%, with 18.4% of people in El Salvador living in relative poverty, and 8.8% of the population is in extreme poverty. Okay? That's, by the way, what the Trump regime wants America to look like. And with their Project 2025 agenda, by firing all these people, taking people off Medicaid, destroying these programs and destroying lives, you see how they try to model things off of El Salvador or Argentina with Javier Milei, where he's cutting people's pensions and throwing people on the street and having people live in extreme poverty right there. So that's the model. And I say this because El Salvador, why do they like it? They like it because this president, Bukele, does these propaganda videos. And here's the one that they did. So here are the people, the Venezuelans, who were taken from the United States, not given due process, not going in front of a commission, just taken, and here's the video of them. And a lot of these people are saying, we're not part of the gangs, we didn't commit crimes. And imagine if just one of these people in the video, that's true, as they get thrown in concentration camps and cages. This video is being released from the official White House Rapid Response account. So I'm showing you, this is what posted on the White House account. Here, play this.
Honey, everything okay?
After having a sleepover without me.
We're sleepover house Rapid Response account. So I'm showing you, this is what posted on the White House account. Here, play this clip. So that's the video that the White House is showing. How these people who were not given due process, people who went before hearing, saying that they were not part of these gangs. And now look, they could be lying. They could be part of the gangs. And if they're part of the gangs and they're tried, they're convicted, we have laws in the United States to deal with this. We don't pick up people, throw them on airplanes, put them in cages, and send them to El Salvador. That's just not what our system is. You may not like that. We have prisons here where the incarceration rate in America is high. One of the only places where the incarceration rate is higher is El Salvador. About 1,700 or 1,800 people out of every 100,000 are in one of those concentration camps or prisons in El Salvador, like you just saw right there. But America, Donald Trump, you said you're going to fix all of these things, so fix the prison systems, and you can deal with it. And you said you're going to stop the border, people from getting in and shut it down. So you should be able to deal with this without taking people claiming that there are wars that don't exist with Venezuela and then throwing people into El Salvador concentration camps. I wanted to provide you with all of that data. You can decide for yourself, but to me, I side with what the Supreme Court said. Give people due process. If they are convicted, throw the book at them. But none of these phony war powers where any person can get picked up and thrown into an El Salvador concentration camp based on Trump declaring a war exists right now. Let me know what you think and subscribe. Let's get to 5 million subscribers. Can't get enough Midas? Check out the Midas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts.
Google calls everything a fucking stimulus check. Hi, Orange Toad. Well, that's what I have so far. That's like 10:30. Oh. Go back to sleep. Kind of. I'm sorry, 10:40. That's cute. He's like, oh yeah, that felt good. Kind of hoping something more would come up here pretty soon, so like we had more to do the stream, but that's looking like a negatory.
YouTube, Hanson Jackson. Good morning, bro.
Hey, Jackson. Somebody screaming woke me up again this morning. That one. I'm a horny toad. Yes, you.
Find me in other places: Discord, Twitter, YouTube, Steam, Xbox, and PlayStation Old Mage Guy on TikTok as Mage. YouTube, Hanson Jackson. I'm tired as hell, dude. Barely slept.
I slept okay when I was sleeping. But I woke up several times. Ugh. It's like I'm tired, but I don't want to take a nap. I don't want to pass out until 5 again.
YouTube. Hanson Jackson. I'm off today, so I'm definitely gonna nap after I eat some breakfast lol.
Can't say I blame you. Oh shit. Maybe after your nap we can figure out something to do.
YouTube. Hanson Jackson. Nap stream lol.
How much that booger butt's moving around back there, I don't know if I'll be able to. He's antsy today. Been being pretty good so far. Hi, Debo. What's up? What's up? He like nothing. He laid down. He's like, he. He seems to be in a pretty good mood today. Well, let's figure out what I'm going to do before I try to end the stream. Because it makes a difference. Okay. Notification. What's notification? Oh. Games on sale. It doesn't make a difference if there's games on sale.
YouTube. Hanson Jackson. Making some eggs and bacon lol.
Okay. I hate it. I'm tired, but I don't want to go to bed. Eh. Ugh. And my body just might not give me a choice either. Oh. I don't want it. I should do that one instead if it is available.
YouTube, Pearson Jackson, you have any more sausage corn dogs?
I do. Something I'm going to be getting monthly. It's the main thing for grocery outlet. It's one of their main get-ins. Their regular items. That's the words I was looking for. Yes. Enter the dungeon. Apparently I need to try Avowed. But that's not what I'm looking for today. Son of a... Damn it! I waited too damn long. Now it's cloud streamable? Fuck yeah. That means I could play Fallout 76. And I might just. You're antsy back there today, bud. You know what? Here's a game I've been needing to play. Before I end up seeing somebody do an entire run through it. And it completely ruins it for me. So, I now figured out what I'm going to do. And I will be back with the midday chill. And a game that's a little